In the video game The Stanley Parable, created by Davey Redden, the identity of the virtual player, Stanley, is non-existent without the real-world player. There are many key factors needed to uncover one's identity. However, if the virtual character full-heartedly relies on the gamer, then they seem to take on the same identity. To have an identity as a virtual player, or even in real life, you must possess a personality or sexuality, abilities to perform certain tasks, and have meaning attached to someone or something. What I have learned through playing this game is that no matter what the outcome is of Stanley, he possesses no meaning or importance. As he does not choose his path, the real-world player is the one telling Stanley what to do, and the outcome relates to Stanley's life, not the real-world player. As an example, as I control Stanley and make him plummet to his death, it has no meaning. Nobody is sad that Stanley just died, as he comes back to life and is ready to start the same day all over again. His lack of identity allows him to do so, as he does not have the ability to think for himself or a personality to fight back when the narrator takes sarcastic shots at his lack of importance in the world. Identity can carry over from game to the real-world player as well. In the book My Avatar, Myself by Zach Wagner, he states the proposition of how virtual identities can carry over and impact our real-world identities. I deem this to be true only in some cases, when depending on what the game is and who is being played. In this game, Stanley is only known as an employee number, and the absence of an identity limits it to rub off on the real-world player. As Stanley appears as what the narrator tells him as his wife's door, it starts to portray for a moment that Stanley might have a purpose or an identity, as he is an attachment to another person. As the door opens, it turns out to be a mannequin, and the narrator states, "You didn't think you actually had a wife that loves you, Stanley, did you?" As cruel as that joke was, Stanley had no emotion to it and reacted in no way whatsoever. This shows that Stanley himself has yet to find a meaning to his life, but with the connection to the real-world player, the gamer gives him a touch of significance, as the narrator commands what he is doing. To Zach's point, games that he uses, such as Morrowind and Oblivion, are far more interactive than that of the Stanley Parable, in which has no instruction or purpose to the game. That allows the connection between the identities that Zach was talking about. James Paul G stated that the projective identity acts as almost a bridge between the real-world player and virtual identities. With that being said, the relation to me and Stanley does not possess the closeness where thoughts of one's personality is forced into the other person. As Stanley is of no importance without me, I do not need Stanley to become a whole. In this clip, as I control Stanley, and I walk down the hall and put him into a closet, the narrator becomes very angry as there is little to no importance of being in there. As I do not touch the keyboard for a couple of minutes, the narrator begins on a rant, saying, "Hello, anyone that happens to be nearby the computer, the person at the computer is dead." This sarcastic statement by the narrator shows the need for the real-world player and the relationship that they share with each other. In G's book, Why Video Games Are Good for the Soul, in Chapter 4, he talks about the relationship between Alucard Jim and Thief and himself as the real-world player. In that game, they had a connection, as Thief possessed all the skills needed to be sly and crafty, while G controlled him and told him what to do. As this correlates to Zach's point earlier in the game, of that of the predominant stance in the connection between the identity and the real-world virtual character. All in all, you cannot have Stanley without the real-world player, and in this game, it is 100% necessary.